Welcome to the regular council meeting of Tuesday, May sixth, 2025, 4:40 p.m. in council chambers. We acknowledge that the town of Kirkland Lake is located on traditional and unceded territory of Indigenous peoples. We recognize the presence of Indigenous people in our community since time immemorial and honor their stewardship and care of these lands. We hereby affirm our continued commitment and responsibility to reconciliation. Call to order, a moment of silence. Approval of the agenda. Moved by Councillor Ranger, seconded by Councillor Shadow.
Be it resolved that the agenda for the regular meeting of council held on Tuesday, May sixth, 2025 be approved as circulated, and that section 15 of procedural bylaw number 1575 as amended be suspended to allow for a recess to hold a public meeting prior to the commencement of regular business noted in section 4 petitions and delegations. And finally, that section 33 of procedure bylaw 1575 as amended be lifted for matters noted under section 4 petitions and delegations only, to relax the rules on discussions between members and the public, and to also allow administration to openly participate in discussion where required.
All in favor? Carried. Item 3, declaration of pecuniary interest. Or do you do that first?
Yeah.
Okay, declaration of pecuniary interest. None noted. So we will now adjourn the regular meeting to go into the public meeting. Bear with me, Mayor White has delegated a big meeting for me to try and chair, so. Call to order for the public meeting on proposed election sign bylaw. So I hereby call this public meeting of the evening or afternoon of Tuesday, May 6th regarding the proposed election signs bylaw to order. Any declaration of pecuniary interest? Nope. Summary, item 3, summary of report.
Great. So I'm going to speak on the municipal clerk's behalf on this one. So this report was given originally on March 18th, 2025. A summary of the proposed changes from the existing bylaw to the proposed bylaw is as followed. There's enhanced definitions provided in the new bylaw, especially around private and public property, enhanced responsibilities for the returning officers of the different government entities. There is, for signs on road allowances, there is a slight triangle that's been established. And the language now also mirrors the Ministry of Transportation's corridor signing policy. There's been a removal of minimum sign restrictions on public properties. No changes to the maximum size restrictions for sign size. There's also been a new established buffer of 50 meters outside of voting locations and administration locations where election tasks are happening. Candidates are to obtain approval in writing from public property owners now that placing their signs on those properties. Public property not owned by the town within the 50-meter voting radius. Those signs will not be permitted to be placed prior to or during advanced voting events or voting day. Election signs will not be erected sooner than 45 days before voting day, and only where a writ has been issued if it's the provincial or federal election. Enforcement is being proposed to be enhanced with better language inside the bylaw to allow the bylaw enforcement division to issue orders to remove signs. The candidates who have election signs that are not in contravention to the bylaw and where those signs are not moved within 24 hours of being notified will be removed by the town. Election signs that are collected and abandoned by candidates after 30 days may be disposed of now. And persons who place vehicle election signs in their vehicles and are in contravention of the regulations and restrictions can now be towed at the owner's expense. So it's just a summary of some of the main changes.
Thank you for that. Confirmation of notice, Madam Chair, or Madam Deputy Clerk, sorry. How was notice given?
So notice of the public meeting was given in accordance with the town of Kirkland Lake's notice bylaw 22-47 by publishing the notice on the town's website more than 14 days in advance, actually as of March 31st, 2025, so more than 14 days. Supplemental notice was published again on April 17th in the Northern News, being the local newspaper, through the town's various social media streams and within local radio broadcasts.
Madam Deputy Clerk, was there any? Oh, Councillor Dykens?
Thank you, Acting Chair Owens. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, this is just for, I think there was an unintended error. On page 6 of 11 of the report, the first paragraph. Page 6 of 11, the first paragraph. It says, administration is recommending the election sign be permitted to be placed on any property only prior to the issuance of a writ. So I think it should be subsequent. And then if you continue on, it says, and only prior to the closing of nominations. I think it also should be subsequent. But if we could get clarity on that, please.
I will have to reach back out to you on this, once I'm able to further look into it. This wasn't my report, so I'm just kind of not as familiar with it as the author. So I will look into that for you and get back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. I think we're okay. Madam Deputy Clerk, was there any correspondence received from members of the public surrounding the proposed updates to the election sign bylaw?
No, Mr. Chair, I can confirm that no correspondence were received by the clerk's office in relation to the proposed updates to the election sign bylaw.
Before I ask my next question, I would like to remind all members of the public. This is a public meeting. There's no discussion or debate with members of the public. Madam Deputy.
Members, sorry, council members.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm reading off the script here and it's first for me. Madam Deputy Clerk, has anyone registered to provide comments or pose questions in person or electronically?
Mr. Chair, I confirm that no one has asked the clerk's office to register or to request to participate electronically in this public meeting.
All right, I will now invite members of the public to line up in the center aisle. You will each have, if there's nobody here, do we really have to do this?
I mean, yes, if there's anybody who wants to speak, if not, then.
Anybody want to speak to this? No.
All right. Go down to consideration of the.
Yeah. So here, Madam Deputy Clerk, please read the directions stemming from the public meeting.
So that council received the comments, questions from members of the public, if any, and that the updated election sign draft bylaw be brought forward for 3 readings at the June 17th regular meeting of council.
This is the recommendation moving forward, so we'll have an adjournment. Do we need to move in a second or not?
No, 447.
This concludes the meeting, public meeting for updates to elections and bylaw this evening. Okay, so item 4, petitions and delegation, will have Community Living of Kirkland Lake provide us the 2025 update. You can come off the podium.
Okay, hi there. I am Darren Bates, and this is William Weish. We are here on behalf of Community Living Kirkland Lake. First of all, I would like to thank Mayor White for declaring May as Community Living Month. It is so nice to see our flag flying outside. Flying outside of Town Hall. Thank you. This year, we are celebrating 78 years of providing supports to the town of Kirkland Lake.
My first event, we are having a hosting a bowling tournament with our special event taking on local charities on May 6th at 6 p.m. We are still looking for celebrities, so if any one of you would like to join us, please let us know.
On May 16th, we have sponsored a free swim at the Joe Mabernack Community Center from six P M to 7:30 P M. On May 21st, we are giving a life worth living book from the author Nicole Flynn at our Czech Centennial Library. We are hosting on May 30th a barbecue from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at our Halo building located at 4 Tweedsmuir. There will be a plant sale, bake sale, and an information table for anyone looking to join CLKL as a volunteer or as an employee. Also a stand and stretch exercise at 11 a.m. Community Living Kirkland Lake encourages and supports persons with intellectual disabilities and their families to ensure that everyone may be actively involved in all aspects of life in our community with full acceptance, dignity, and independence. We strive to have full acceptance, and this is why we are celebrating this month. We want to be known positively in the town of Kirkland Lake, and to have others join in on our celebration to become aware of the people we support and to be comfortable in accepting us when we are out and about in the community. We would like to thank the mayor, councilors, and the whole town of Kirkland Lake for helping us achieve our goals. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You want to just get a picture before you, Darren, please?
So before,
Thanks, yes.
before you leave, I'll give council members an opportunity. Like, it's unfortunate that most of our members are not in the room tonight. But I see some hands raised on the screen that would like to acknowledge or speak with you guys. So, Mayor White.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Owens. It's always something that I look forward to, welcoming Community Living Kirkland Lake into Chambers. They always have such a special place in my heart. And tonight, to welcome a former classmate as part of the delegation, I want to personally thank Mr. Bates. Darren, thank you for coming and presenting this evening. And I look forward to seeing you at some of those events during the month of May. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And Councillor Shava had his hand raised as well.
Oh.
I think I might have missed that. Any more questions? No? Okay, so thank you very much for coming.
Thank
It's always appreciated. Need a mover and a seconder on this motion. Councillor Ranger and Councillor Shava.
Sorry, be resolved that the delegation entitled 2025 update be received for information purposes.
All in favor? Carried. Item 5, acceptance of minutes and recommendations, 5.1, council minutes from April 15th meeting, moved by Councillor Ranger and Mayor White.
Be it resolved that council approve the minutes of the following meeting, minutes of the regular meeting of council held April 15th, 2025.
All in favor? Carried. Item 5.2, committees of council minutes. Moved by Councillor Ranger and Councillor Shaw.
Be it resolved that council adopt the minutes of the following meetings, minutes of the Kirkland Lake Planning Advisory Committee special meeting held May 30th, 2024, and minutes of the Kirkland Lake Committee of Adjustment held December 18th, 2024.
All in favor? Carried. Item 5.3, local and regional board minutes, moved by Councilor Ranger and seconded by Mayor White.
Be it resolved that council receive the minutes of the following meeting, minutes of the Northeastern Public Health Board of Health held February 27th, 2025.
All in favor? Carried. Item 6, reports of municipal officers and communications, 6.1, strong mayor powers, Alan Sitt, chief administrative officer. Moved by Councilor Ranger and seconded by Mayor White.
Be resolved that report number 2025-CAO-007 entitled Strong Mayor Powers and Overview and Impact on the Town of Kirkland Lake be received for information.
C.O. Smith.
Through you, acting mayor, to members of council. The strong mayor powers were introduced by the province of Ontario in 2022 by way of the Strong Mayors Building Homes Act, or Bill 3. Prior to May 1st, 2025, 47 municipalities were granted the strong mayor powers. It's important to note that these mayors committed to writing housing pledges under the province's target of building the 1.5 million new homes by 2031 in order to receive these powers. The recent announcement of 170 additional municipalities, as identified under Regulation 530/22, have been assigned strong mayor powers, including Kirkland Lake. However, important to note, unlike the first 47 municipalities prior to May 1st, it does not appear that the 170 municipalities will be required to commit to a housing pledge. In other words, Kirkland Lake and the other 169 have these powers. We cannot give them back or turn them down. Rather, they have been assigned to the town, but the mayor does not have to use them. The powers allow heads of council or of single and lower tier municipalities with councils of 6 members or more to support and advance the provincial priorities. And there's 2 main ones in subsections. First is building the 1.5 million new residential units by the end of 2031. And the second is constructing and maintaining infrastructure that support this housing, including transit, roads, utilities, and servicing. Now, the powers assigned to the mayor are listed in the report. However, it's important to note that 4 of those powers a mayor can delegate back to council or to the CAO, depending on the power. These include the power to decide whether to appoint a CAO and to make the appointment or dismiss a CAO. Mayor White has delegated this power back to council. Therefore, the process of hiring or dismissing a CAO has not changed for Kirkland Lake presently. Next is the power to appoint and remove managers at any level. Mayor White has delegated this power back to the CAO. Similarly, the power to modify and establish the organizational structure. Mayor White has delegated this power back to the CAO. Now, a mayor has the power to appoint, under the new powers, a mayor has the power to appoint chairs and vice chairs of prescribed committees and local boards. Mayor White has delegated this power back to council. Nothing's changed. Now, these mayoral directives of Mayor White are posted on the Strong Mayor Powers webpage on the town's website. So all actions undertaken by Mayor White will be posted on the website. This includes matters pertaining to bylaws, the budget, any direction that she directs employees to undertake research and provide advice to the mayor and the municipality, and to carry out duties to implement those decisions, including those of the mayor. It's also important for council to know that if the mayor is of the opinion that a particular matter could possibly advance a prescribed provincial priority, these 2 main ones I just described, the mayor may add matters to the council meeting agenda for consideration. There's no requirement for the mayor to abide by the town's procedural bylaw in that regard. Now, the mayor may also bring forward a bylaw if they believe it could potentially advance a prescribed provincial priority. The mayor may require council to consider and vote on the proposed bylaw at the meeting. Upon consideration and voting, the bylaw is deemed to be passed if more than 1/3 of the members of council vote in favor of the bylaw. So that's 3 members of council. Okay. So if the mayor does not object to any of the bylaws passed at a council meeting, a notification will be placed on the website indicating her agreement. This must be done for every council meeting. If, however, the mayor is of the opinion that all or part of a bylaw could potentially interfere with a prescribed provincial priority, the mayor can veto a bylaw. Like the written approval for every bylaw passed by council, this veto notification must be done within 48 hours of its passing. And this establishes a process through which council may override a mayoral veto. An override of the mayor veto requires 2/3 to pass, or 5 members in Kirkland Lake's case. The council report contains a flow chart that illustrates this process. With respect to the budget, this is the mayor's budget now. By February the 1st of each year, the mayor shall prepare a proposed budget for the municipality and provide it to council for consideration, as well as make it available to the public. Should the mayor not present the budget by February the 1st, the council prepares and adopts a budget for the municipality, just like the regular process. There is a flow chart in the council report that provides an overview of this process. Now, staff are still getting a handle on what this process could look like and the various options that are open to Mayor White. So this is still new, and this is part that we need to pay more attention to. So the town of Kirkland Lake has been assigned these powers, which cannot be rejected. Rather, utilization of the powers will be at the discretion of the mayor, and Mayor White has delegated her authority on the ones she can back to council or to CAO. Although the province provides rationale for the strong mayor's powers, it's worth mentioning that a strong mayor system provides the mayor with a centralized executive authority to take actions and make decisions on a unilateral basis without the concurrence or support of a majority of members of council. Such a system could be argued creates a power imbalance on council, granting the head of council additional powers that generally members of council do not have unless delegated. It's also really important to mention that the strong mayor powers cannot be delegated to a deputy mayor or even to an acting mayor. Okay. Administration is reviewing bylaws and other governing documents that may need to be updated, and will undertake this work based on those which are most urgent first. Also, as mentioned, staff will require more time to understand the best practices and options and more information about impacts to the 2026 budget process. We still have time. Now, I'll answer any questions, of course. If I do not have the answer to some of them, I'll find the answers and circulate to council. This is still new, and we're currently in the process of getting a better understanding of this legislation. For example, we did have a couple of questions for our regional representatives from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and even he is having to take time to research to answer our questions. So, saying that, open the floor, please. Thank you.
CEO Smith, definitely makes me reconsider how I'm going to teach my civics class next semester with this type of power for municipalities. It changes the balance. It seems undemocratic for me. There's something fundamentally wrong about this one. Any questions or comments from members of council? Councillor Dykens?
Thank you, Acting Chair Owens. First, I'd like to applaud our mayor for delegating what powers she could back to either council or the CAO. I thank you for that. I think the original intention of strong mayor powers was good for cities that had a lot of bureaucracy. I think it went too far in this case. The fact that we can't, not we, but the mayor can't reject it or turn it down, I think is problematic. So maybe there will be a movement that we we asked the province, you know, for municipalities to be able to have a choice of whether they want to exercise it or not. But in the meantime, thank you, Mayor White, for delegating those powers at this time.
Any other questions or comments? Do we require the reading of the motion again? Oh, sorry, Mayor White. Go ahead, Mayor.
Yeah, sorry, thank you. I do want to note that it is a great topic around most tables here at Funham, currently. As you are aware, we were given these powers without any prior notice. A lot of municipalities are even further behind in their knowledge than we are. So I do appreciate the hard work of CAO and staff for providing us with such an involved report this evening. And I have shared it with multiple other municipalities while we're here, and strong mayors. The overwhelming majority are unhappy with the implications of this. I think many of us agree that this is an attack on how our democracy works at the municipal level. And I have complete respect for my team of council. I have served with multiple members for 2 terms, and the last 2 years we've been nothing but a team. And though we may not agree 100% of the time, we respect each other and we respect the decisions of the whole of council. And for my part, that will continue. If at any time there is a useful purpose of some of these, it will go through council, just as it always has. If we can't get an agreement at the council table, maybe the ideas aren't as good as one individual may think. So I do appreciate the whole of council's patience while we get more information on this and navigate through that budget cycle next time. So thank you to everyone.
If there's no more questions or comments, we'll vote on it. All in favor? Carried. Item 6.2, 2024, a year in review by Alan Smith, CEO. Moved by Councillor Shaba, seconded by Councillor Dykens.
Be it resolved that report number 2025-CO-008 entitled 2024 year in review be received for information.
CEO Smith.
Through you, Acting Mayor, to members of council, we are pleased to present the second annual year review report. This one is 2024. The report breaks down or highlights some of the initiatives, the key accomplishments, and some of the milestones we accomplished over 2024. And when you go through the report, you'll notice that many of these, of course, will align with our corporate business plan and also corporate strategic plan. So everything all is intertwined. The process involved, each department provides their highlights and our strategic initiatives coordinated per all together. And I think it's a good review of some of the accomplishments that council were able to undertake in 2024. So I welcome any questions. And if there's a question on a certain area, I would ask that the director of that department come forward to answer the question. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any comments or questions from members of council? The only thing I don't see it, the only one I would add is maybe, I don't know if it's possible to have it earlier in the year. By this time of in 2025, I'm more excited or curious about what's going on and where we're at in this year's projects than what we've done last year. So I think if we can maybe have it January, February, it's more relevant than almost midway through 2025. Yep.
Yeah, through acting chair. Yes, totally agree. We get sidetracked with a few other priorities that took us down a different road earlier this year. But think last year we had it at the beginning of March or the end of February, and we will plan for that timeline in 2026.
Sounds good. I hope the cookies are good.
Yeah.
Do we require reading the motion or just all in favor? Carried. Item 6.3, 2023 audited financial statements. Okay. I get a mover and a second on this one. Councillor Ranger and Mayor White.
Very good. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we'll just have the motion read and then we'll jump right into it.
Perfect.
Be it resolved that report number 2025-Corp-15 entitled 2023 audited financial statements be received, and that council hereby approve the consolidated financial statements of the corporation of the town of Kirkland Lake for the year ended December 31st, 2023. And that council hereby approve the trust funds balance sheet and statement of continuity of the corporation of the town of Kirkland Lake and its affiliated boards for the year ended December 31st, 2023. And finally, that council hereby authorize the treasurer to distribute the audited financial statements as required by section 295(1) of Municipal Act 2001 as amended.
Not sure who starts. Is it the treasurer?
So through you, acting mayor, I'd just like to introduce Mark Belanger. He's a partner at Baker Tilly. He's going to give a presentation to you about his part in the audit process, and afterwards I'll have a few comments to make myself. Go ahead, Mark.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone, for having me this evening. Appreciate your time. If council permits, I will share my screen just so that I can maybe direct council's attention to a few key items within our audit report and financial statements. If there are any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Also, upon completion of my presentation of the statements, if council would permit me a few additional minutes just to address a few items from our audit that we would like to bring to your attention, that would also be greatly appreciated.
Okay, you've got.
So I hope everyone can see my screen, and if not, I will be sure to identify which page within the package that was provided with the agenda at item 6.3 for anybody following that might not be able to see the screen. So I will start with our independent auditor report, and this is page 8 of that package. Our audit report for the 2023 year end for the municipal corporation of the town of Kirkland Lake is essentially the same as has been provided in prior years. We have issued a clean audit opinion once again. And the second paragraph reads as follows. In our opinion, the accompanying consolidated financial statements present fairly in all material respects the consolidated financial position of the municipal corporation of the town of Kirkland Lake as at December 31st, 2023, and its consolidated results of operations and its consolidated cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. This audit report does go into some additional detail on how we form our opinion, as well as the various responsibilities of management and those charged with governance for these financial statements, that being council, as well as our responsibilities as auditors, which is available within this audit report. We have dated our audit report May 6, 2025, being today, in anticipation of council approving these financial statements. So continuing on into the financial statements themselves, so the consolidated statement of financial position, which can be found at page 11 of the package, or page 1 of these financial statements. For 2023, financial assets amounted to $23,510,546, with liabilities of $30,319,974, and a net debt of approximately $6.8 million. Non-financial assets, which include tangible capital assets, prepaid expenses, and inventory of supplies, for $118.9 million, for an accumulated surplus of $112,137,128. There are a few items within your statement of financial position that I would like to bring to the attention of council. The first of which is a new item that is included within liabilities, and it's the last line of the liability section of this report, being the asset retirement obligations. So in past years, what council might have noted as a liability would have been referred to as the landfill closure and post-closure costs, which would have been the liability reflecting the future costs to closing and monitoring the landfill upon closure. There is a new accounting standard that applied to municipalities for 2023, and it is a standard referred to as the Asset Retirement Obligation Standard. This incorporates additional obligations in addition to the landfill closure. One being, for example, asbestos. If there are asbestos noted in buildings, there is a obligation to incur costs to remove the asbestos when that asset is disposed of, for example. So this encapsulates any kind of future obligation costs that would be incurred when retiring or disposing of an asset. It does also include those same landfill closure and post-closure costs that we would have seen in past years. However, this new standard does have two key changes to it, one being how that liability is valued. So in past years for the landfill, as you reach as you're developing or as you are incurring usage of your landfill, there is that future cost that we build up to. So that liability increases annually as it's being used. Under the Asset Retirement Obligation Standard, this liability is recognized essentially immediately, so as of today. So what this takes into account is this future cost that we anticipate upon closure, whether that be 20, 30, 40 years from now. And we bring that back to today's dollars to evaluate that liability. And we assess that liability as an estimated amount of approximately $2.9 million on your 2023 financial statements. The other component to this new standard is it recognizes that there is an asset because there's an economic benefit being gained by the usage of, let's say, the landfill, for example, for an equal amount as it's recorded. So there is a landfill asset that has also been recorded in the books and records of the town of Kirkland Lake for approximately $2.9 million, and that would be included in your tangible capital assets line. And it is identified in note 16 of these financial statements. So those are the key differences to this new standard that has been applied. The other thing to bring to your attention that relates to this new standard application is under the 2022 column that we provide for comparative purposes. We do say that it is restated and we refer to note 6. So how we have applied this change in standard is we have reflected this retrospectively. So in other words, we've recorded this in a way that shows as though this new liability and this new asset has been reflected in these financial statements since day one. There is a change in what that number looks like. So if you were to look at the 2022 financial statements, for example, that liability would have been substantially lower. It would have been approximately $400,000, and now we're showing at $2.9 million. So that restatement does have a fairly significant impact. However, as mentioned, there is an offsetting asset to that, and that note 6 provides all those details of what numbers would have changed. So if you're comparing to your 2022 financial statements, that gives an essentially a breakdown or a summary of what numbers have changed and why. So continuing to page 2 of your financial statements, or page 12 of the package in council's agenda, the consolidated statement of operations and accumulated surplus, and I will focus on the 2023 actual column for the time being. So total revenues, which include your taxation, user charges, grants, and other revenues, amounted to $34.6 million, with expenses, which have been segmented to the various departments within the municipality, amounted to $38,885,587 for an annual deficit before other revenues of $4.3 million. Other revenues would include your government grants, provincial and federal, related to acquisitions in a capital nature, which amounted to $1,332,231 for an annual deficit of $2.9 million. Began the year with an accumulated surplus at the beginning of the year of $115,076,430 to finish the year with $112,137,128. A few items to, again, maybe bring to the attention of council that would be of importance. As you're comparing either to your actuals from the year before, or especially your budgeted figures. Now, the budgeted figures have been restated to reflect public sector accounting standards. So normally a municipality, as is very common, and when preparing a budget, it is more so done on a cash basis. We have taken that budget that had been approved by council, and we have made modifications to align it with how it would be reflected in a public sector accounting standard manner. So these numbers might not look exactly the same as would have been approved by council. Council has approved a balanced budget. This has some modifications so that we can compare to the 2023 actuals, for example. Are there any questions before continuing through the financial statements? Hearing none, and there will be, yes?
I was just, I don't see any hands raised on the screen.
Perfect. There will be other opportunities as well if there are any future questions. So I will quickly go through some of the additional statements. So on page 3, statement of cash flows, without going into a degree of detail, this simply provides a summary of the cash inflows and outflows for the year on 2023. So we do take the annual deficit of 2.9 million. We add to that cash and cash equivalents provided by operating transactions of 7.7 million. There were some capital transactions, namely the acquisition of capital assets, 2.9 million, as well as municipal debt that's been repaid of 1.1 million. So we do have an increase in cash for the year of approximately 3.7 million to finish at 19.6 million. Page 4, statement of the consolidated statement of change in net debt simply provides an explanation of the net debt from the beginning of the year of 5.8 million to the net debt of 6.8 million. And that simply includes, again, acquisition of capital assets. It takes into account amortization and the annual deficit for the year. The next several pages represent the notes to your financial statements. I will not go through the notes in any kind of detail. For the most part, a lot of these notes would have been the same notes that we would have seen in past years, other than those that I have mentioned, namely for explanation of the restatement, explanation for the budget reconciliation, amongst other things, as well as some other important information that would be useful to the users of your financial statements. So maybe the one question that we would get often with that asset retirement obligation that we were referring to earlier would be that what is the impact of that change in the standard to the users of the statements and to council. And probably what I would bring to your attention would be your accumulated surplus note, which I believe is on page 38 of this package. And because within accumulated surplus, we do segregate the asset retirement obligation as an unfunded liability and that related asset as within invested intangible capital assets, I think the important takeaway for council is this new standard does not affect reserves and does not affect the general surplus that we've reflected within accumulated surplus. I think the last item within the financial statements is with regards to the trust fund statements that are also included within your packages. We do issue a separate audit report for these statements as well. Once again, we have released a clean audit opinion with regards to these statements. We would, again, just bring to the attention of council that we have had an adjustment or a restatement that we've provided details within note 3 of these financial statements that just reflect a correction of a prior period transaction. So we've brought that forward and reflected that properly. And the only other thing that I would like to mention is the format or the presentation of the statement of financial position and the statement of continuity. We've changed the look of it slightly just to benefit the users of these particular statements as they read through them for their understanding of them. So unless there are any other questions,
I don't see any.
perfect. Now I know the treasurer has expressed a desire to address some other items. I'm unsure if the treasurer would prefer to address those items at this stage, or if would be preferable if I address my final audit findings to council before that happens.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark, and finish your presentation.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. So annually, we address with council just some items that have stemmed from our audit that we think would be important for council to be aware of. So these items include our audit approach. So just to inform council that our audit approach has remained the same as it would have been in prior years. And we take essentially what's called a substantive approach to our audit, which essentially is just as we're looking at the transactions and the figures within these financial statements, we corroborate or we validate this information by going to supporting documents. That would be invoices, payroll registers, grant applications, contracts, things of that nature. So we're always going to the supporting documents to support the numbers within these statements. As far as audit risks and results, no additional risks that we feel important to bring to the attention of council. Key estimates. So there are some estimates within your financial statements that are of a substantial nature, one being the asset retirement obligation that I spoke of earlier. So it does have an estimation quality to that. And we essentially support those estimates again with engineer reports and things of that nature to support. Changes in accounting policies, in addition to the asset retirement obligations, you will find in the notes to the financial statements that other policies have been adopted, but they did have no impact to the financial statements of the town of Kirkland Lake. With regards to materiality, so in past years, you may have heard me talk about materiality being a threshold that we as auditors determine that if there are errors that we come across or items that we would recommend correcting within the financials before having them approved by council, we would utilize that threshold in determining that amount. That essentially amounts to $1,165,000 for the 2023 year end. That is not to say that we ignore anything in excess of that amount, but we do utilize that in determining our samples and our audit testing. If there were any items that exceed a much smaller threshold of about 58,000, we would bring that to the attention of council if it had not been corrected within the statements. There is one item within inventory that has a fair value component to it that fluctuates with the market. That has not been adjusted within your financial statements, but it has a very small value to it of about just over 70,000. In discussing with your finance department, we agreed that it was probably be improper to record that within your 2023 financials. As far as independence is concerned, we confirm annually that on behalf of myself, my audit team, and our firm, Baker Tilly, SNT, that we are independent of the town of Kirkland Lake. As far as other matters are concerned, we're confident that everything that needs to be reflected within the notes to your financial statements, as well as the numbers within your financial statements, are properly reflected. We have not come across any significant or unusual transactions. There hasn't been any significant matters discussed with management. As far as internal control recommendations, in talking with management, if we come across some things that we would like to maybe see going forward, some changes, we would put that in what we call a management letter. The only item that we identified that we have discussed with management is, again, with regards to that asset retirement obligation, so that landfill closure and post-closure costs. It's been a few years that the engineers have provided an estimate of what those costs would be. It's ineffective or not cost efficient to obtain an estimate annually, but we would recommend maybe every 3 years or so to get an updated estimate of those costs, and those would be reflected in the year that those estimates are available. And finally, no other instances of illegal acts, fraud, intentional misstatements, or errors were noted during the audit, and nor have we come across any instances of non-compliance of laws or regulations during that time. We have properly reflected any subsequent events within your financials as well. And that essentially just means that anything since December 31st, 2023 up to today that would have occurred that we're aware of that might have had an impact on your 2023 financials have been properly reflected. I do like to take this opportunity because we are responsible for these statements up to today. If council or management is aware of anything else as auditors that we should be made aware of for these financial statements. So I would like to put that question out. Hearing none, seeing no hands, that essentially ends my presentation. So I thank you very, very much. If there are any questions, please don't hesitate to ask.
Thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Mark. So through you, Acting Mayor, I have a couple of points I just want to bring up. Obviously, you can see that this is the 2023 financial statements and we're in 2025. There's a couple of reasons for that other than just being busy. So the biggest one is what we do an estimate every year related to amounts owed to the province in our TPR operations. It takes them 2 years to actually assess those submissions that we give them. So we received them back in the fall. At that point, we had an estimate done. We had filled out all of our forms. We were all kind of ready to go. We got their assessment of the 2021 submission, and it was substantially different than what we expected. So we kind of had to go back to the drawing table to make sure that we understood what they were looking for, following their rules. And just to give you an idea, those rules have changed substantively since COVID. Before, there was probably 5 or 6 programs at TPR. Now there's about 12. I think the last time I took a look, with different purposes, different staffing, different objectives, and they all have to be reported on. Some of them are reporting on a December year end, some are reporting on a March year end. So anyways, in the end, I'm not trying to make any excuses here other than that's what slowed us down for the most part while we're sitting here in the spring, looking at a year and a half, almost a year and a half old statement. Another issue was, as Mark mentioned, with the trust funds, the BAO has asked us to move to a slightly different reporting model. That's essentially because they prefer us to report mostly on the cash basis. It didn't create any issues for us, but it forced us to kind of go back about 3 years to make sure that all of the numbers that were building up to what we saw in this year's statement are correct. They disallowed an expenditure from a couple of years ago, materials that were available to us at that point, 2020, I believe it was. Suggested it was okay, but they are taking a different tact with it now. They no longer accept capital items as part of their reconciliation process. So we're on our own when it comes to capital with the cemetery. So again, slowed us down. For the most part though, those things are behind us now. We were already looking at July. We're gonna turn this around, hopefully in July, and Marco has to get back to me about that, but we're gonna they'll be parking themselves downstairs for a week or two and we'll get this thing done much quicker. With regards to the fair value of investments, I just want to be kind of clear. This is something that's pretty normal. You know, we have the investment is a gold bar. And we all know how gold moves around. We do not make that adjustment every month. The number would be, you know, depending on which month you're in, would move around substantially. So we're aware of it. We just don't make the adjustment because of the nature of that market. Yeah, that's essentially everything I kind of wanted to point out. The report itself talks about a couple of things as well, things you already kind of be aware of as you're in year 3 now of your time with us. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from members of council? None. Do we require to have the motion reread? All in favor? Carried. Thank you, Mr. Belanger, for being with us.
Thank you.
Item 6.4, requests for easement agreement with Hydro One Networks, Water Lane, Jenna McNaughton, Plan Administrator. By Counselor Ranger, seconded by Counselor Shaba.
Be it resolved that report number 2025-DEV-013 entitled Request for Easement Agreement with Hydro One Networks, Inc., Water Lane be received. And that council authorize the mayor and municipal clerk to execute an easement agreement with Hydro One Networks, Inc. over part of mining claims L1829 and L2103. And finally, that an execution bylaw be brought forward for 3 readings on May 20th, 2025.
Thank you, through you, acting mayor, to council. So I have a request to enter into an agreement with Hydro One Networks. They're looking at installing a hydro pole and an anchor into our property at the Water Lane parking lot. The pole will be within the road allowance, so the agreement doesn't capture the pole, just the anchor. It's a very standard agreement that we normally enter into with Hydro One. This one has a consideration of $1,000 with it. In consulting with the Department of Public Works, they did make a request that the pole be set back a certain distance from the curb, and we did coordinate or provide that information to Hydro One, and we asked if they could let us know if we would be doing work.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on this? Pretty easy. All in favor? Carried. Item 6.5, request to purchase part of mining claim L1355 and L6730 on Archer Drive, Jenna McNaughton. Moved by Mayor White, seconded by Councilor Shaba.
Be it resolved that report number 2025-DEV-014 entitled Request to Purchase Part of Mining Claims L1355 and L6730 on Archer Drive be received for information.
Thank you, acting mayor, through you to council. We have a request to purchase a part of 2 mining claims over on Archer Drive from Abitibi and Anishinaabe Nation. They're looking at purchasing the property to develop a biochar and biocarbon business venture. The site was selected due to the proximity to forestry resources and transportation routes. In their request to purchase, they had asked if we could extend our typical building clause from 2 years to 4 years. We have coordinated or consulted with Public Works in regards to the property with the services, and the requesting purchaser is made aware of that. In accordance with our policies, the notice of intent to dispose of the property was posted on our website and circulated in the newspaper. Supplemental notices are also being completed on the radio. The sale for this property is proposed to generate a revenue of $120,000. Future annual revenues would also be seen with taxes and through other planning and building application processes. The execution bylaw is proposed to be presented at the next meeting on May 20th, which will, the offer to purchase will accompany that bylaw.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Mayor White?
Sorry, we don't often celebrate our wins very loudly. And I think this is yet another project that needs to be said, this is a very large, potentially large project in Kirkland Lake again, and we want to thank our Indigenous community partners that are building in our community, and to the tune of, in the report, it is a potential of 70 million capital investment. So that is an incredible amount, and we should be celebrating along with our partners and our community as a whole that we're diversifying our economy in Kirkland Lake with our Indigenous partners. So congratulations to Jenna and the team over there. You're doing excellent work, and your director and everybody over there deserves big kudos for this one. So congratulations, guys.
Thank you for that. Said much better than I would have said it. The words don't come to me. On that note, all in favor? Carried. Item 7, considerations of notices of motions. None. Introductions, or number 8, introductions and readings and considerations of bylaws. 8.1. Bylaw 25020, 2025 tax ratios, moved by Councillor Ranger, seconded by Mayor White.
Be it resolved that the following bylaw be read, numbered, passed, signed by the mayor and the municipal clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. Bylaw number 25-020, being a bylaw to set tax ratios for municipal purposes for the year 2025.
All in favor? Carried unanimously. Item 8.2, bylaw 25021, 2025 municipal budget. Moved by Councillor Ranger, seconded by Mayor White.
Be it resolved that the following bylaw be read, numbered, passed, signed by the mayor and the municipal clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. Bylaw number 25-021, being a bylaw to adopt the 2025 municipal budget.
On favor? Carried unanimously. Item 8.33, bylaw 25022, striking 2025 rates of taxation. Moved by Councillor Shaba, seconded by Mayor White.
Be it resolved that the following bylaw be read, numbered, passed, signed by the mayor and municipal clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. Bylaw number 25-022, being a bylaw to adopt the estimates of all sums required during the year and to strike the rates of taxation for the year 2025.
All in favor? Carried unanimously again. Question, item 9, questions from council to staff. There were none. Item 10, notices of motion. Hearing none. Item 11, councilors' reports. Any members of council, or do we have to get a mover first? Can we have a mover and seconder in this one? Councilor Ranger, like that, seconded by Councilor Shaba.
Be it resolved that the verbal updates from members of council be received.
Any member wishing to speak to happenings for the last 2 weeks? Hearing none. All in favor? Passed. Item 12, additional information. Do we need a mover and a seconder on each one? All right, so item 12.1, proclamation victims and survivors of crime awareness week. Yeah. Moved by Councillor Ranger, seconded by Councillor Shaba.
Be it resolved that council sanction the proclamation for victims and survivors of crime awareness week, May 11th to 17th, 2025 in the town of Kirkland Lake.
And this is where I read it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas victims and survivors of crime have gone through traumatic experiences, and whereas the goal of victims and survivors of crime week is to raise awareness about the issues facing victims of crime and about the services, programs, and laws in place to help victims and their families. And whereas victims and survivors of crime week is also a time to acknowledge the work of service providers and their dedication in assisting victims and survivors of crime and their families. And whereas this year's theme, the power of collaboration, highlights that we can all help shape a future in which victims and survivors of crime are treated with the compassion, courtesy, and respect they deserve. And whereas the Victim Services of Timiskaming District has requested council proclaim the week of May 11th to 17th, 2025 as Victims and Survivors of Crime Awareness Week, Now therefore, I, Casey Owens, acting mayor of the town of Kirkland Lake, do hereby proclaim May 11th to 17th, 2025 as Victim of Survivors of Crime Awareness Week. All in favor? Passed. Item 12.2 proclamation fibromyalgia awareness day, moved by Councilor Rangers, seconded by Mayor White.
Be it resolved that council sanction the proclamation for Fibromyalgia Awareness Day, May 12th, 2025 in the town of Kirkland Lake.
Whereas fibromyalgia is a complex illness whose symptoms vary widely and may include debilitating chronic pain, overwhelming fatigue, and cognitive impairment. And whereas there is no known cause or cure for fibromyalgia. And whereas Fibromyalgia Awareness Day is an opportunity to raise awareness and to show support for those living with FM and their families. And whereas Fibromyalgia Association Canada is the only national organization in Canada that supports both FM research services for people with FM and their families. And whereas fibromyalgia affects about 5% of Canada's population, which is over 2 million men, women, and children of all ages and races are afflicted with this chronic illness. And whereas people with FM have a right to be treated with dignity and have a right to pain relief. Now, therefore, I, Casey Owens, acting mayor of the town of Kirkland Lake, do hereby proclaim May 12th, 2025 as Fibromyalgia Awareness Day. All in favor? Carried. Item 12.3. Provincial Day of Action on Litter, moved by Councilor Rangers, seconded by Councilor Shaba.
Be resolved that council sanction the proclamation for Provincial Day of Action on Litter, May 13th, 2025 in the town of Kirkland Lake.
Whereas the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks has taken action to reduce the amount of waste going into landfills or becoming litter by bringing awareness to the impacts of waste on our environment and encouraging people to take action at home and in their community to help keep our environment clean and healthy for generations to come. And whereas the Provincial Day of Action on Litter is celebrated on the second Tuesday of May each year in Ontario. And whereas the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks suggest the following ways to decrease waste and litter in our area. Reducing waste, giving old products new life instead of throwing them away. For example, using old containers for storage or supporting secondhand clothing stores as opposed to buying new. Diverting waste, recycling or composting materials when and where possible to divert waste away from landfills. For example, by using your blue and green bins or cleaning up litter, make sure you properly separate out recyclables. Preventing waste and litter, stopping waste before it's created and before it has a chance to become litter. For example, by choosing to buy goods with less packaging or bringing a reusable cup to take out establishments that accept them. Cleaning up litter, helping to keep our community clean by picking up and properly disposing of litter or by organizing a community litter cleanup for others. Our litter cleanup guides have more information on how to organize a safe and successful cleanup. And properly disposing of waste, making sure anything that does belong in the trash is securely placed in the garbage bin to help keep our neighborhoods clean. And whereas the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks encourages everyone to join in the litter cleanup in their neighborhood. Now, therefore, I, Casey Owens, acting mayor of the town of Kirkland Lake, do hereby proclaim May 13th, 2025 as Provincial Day of Action on Litter. All in favor? Carried. We'll now take a 10-minute recess. So we will now, is YouTube Alpha? No, I have to, we have to go into close. Just read. So we're moving into close, so recommendation to adjourn the regular
We need
meeting
to move
moved by Counselor Ranger, seconded by Counselor Dykens, I think that, or, yeah, Dykens.
Okay, be it resolved that council adjourn in camera pursuant to section 2392 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended to discuss a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, a position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board at 5:55 PM for the following reasons. Item 13.1, request to purchase 3 McKelvey Avenue. Item 13.2, request to purchase 22 and 24 Government Road West and 82 Government Road West. And item 13.3, supplemental proposed request for offer of tech mining claim L1829 Old Tennis Courts.
All in favor? Carried. Need to move in a second to rise from close. Counselor Ranger, seconded by Mayor White.
Be it resolved that council reconvene in open session at 6:15 PM.
All in favor? Carried. Matters from close, item 14.1. Moved by Counselor Ranger, seconded by Counselor Shabba.
Be it resolved that report number 2025-DEV-015 entitled Request to Purchase 3 McKelvey Avenue, Pong, be received. And that council approve the sale of land at 3 McKelvey Avenue to Jenny Pong in the sum of $2,500. And that the mayor and municipal clerk be authorized to execute the offer of purchase and all appropriate sale documents as may be required. And finally, that the corresponding execution bylaw be given 3 readings at an upcoming meeting.
All in favor? Carried. Item 14.2. Moved by Counselor Ranger and Mayor White.
Be it resolved that report number 2025-DEV-016 entitled Request to Purchase 2022-2024 Government Road West and 82 Government Road West be received. And that council approve the sale of land at 82 Government Road West to Parth Patel for $20,000. And that council approve the sale of land at 22 and 24 Government Road West to Parth Patel for $16,000. And that council authorize the mayor and the clerk to execute the offer to purchase and all appropriate sale documents as may be required. And finally, that council authorize the bylaw of the sale of property be given 3 readings at an upcoming meeting.
All in favor? Carried. 15.1 confirmation bylaw moved by Counselor Shabba, seconded by Mayor White.
Be it resolved that the following bylaw be read, numbered, passed, signed by the mayor, municipal clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. Bylaw number 25-827 being bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held Tuesday, May 6, 2025.
All in favor? Carried. Adjournment. Counselor Ranger.
6:17 PM.
Thank you, everybody.